But that is what's hurting us. That's why we're having less sex. That's why we're not having a good time dating. It's why we can't find deep, meaningful relationships, because we're not being vulnerable enough. The dating issues now with technology is not a tech problem. It's a people problem. And you can't solve this people problem with tech. I think men and women are both unhappy for legitimate reasons, and there's some hypocrisy on both sides.
Why is that? Don't ghost?
Yes.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the People Fuss podcast. My name is Doug Daniels.
I am Carrie Prince.
And we are here to discuss the fuss about people. That means discussing the stories and news about love, life, and leadership.
Yep, we're talking about human connection and disconnection. And today, this could not be closer to that theme of connection, especially human connection, because we're going to be talking about Bumble, Whitney Herd, and a Hulu film called Swiped that is upcoming in September 2025. And I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about this because I worked as a professional matchmaker for several years. I worked as a dating coach for longer than that. I still have some date coaching clients, and I've talked to thousands of singles about what they want, what they're looking for, the experience that they're having in the dating world. And so I'm very excited that we're getting the story of Whitney, but there's also she's had quite a year because in March, there was a whole story about her going through an ego death during her time off as CEO from Bumble. She stepped down. She went and found herself. Who knows what happened? But
Drugs happened.
Maybe. I don't know. She might have done some ayahuasca. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
She comes back to Bumble after the other CEO had stepped down, says she's been through an ego death. She doesn't care if people like her anymore. And she's convinced that she can come back, turn the company around. As you know, online dating is not doing so well these days. And she wants to reinvent Bumble.
What do you think about that? A person who doesn't care what people think about her running a dating company. There's some irony in there, I think.
Well, that statement, I guess it's coming from a much deeper personal place for her because she's the one who thought people cared before.
Yeah. And also what happened, not to spoil any story, but what happened to her at Tinder, right? The company that she founded first.
Yeah. And we'll definitely get into that.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into kind of the history of Whitney Herd, Tinder, Bumble, what's happening now. And I really want to try and dissect this question of, can technology save dating? It's a big question. Everyone thinks it can. They've thought it could for a while now. I've heard so many people talk about AI and dating and how AI is going to change everything. And I'll let you know what my theory is as a dating expert a little later in the show. So let's get into the history of Whitney Herd in the dating world. Okay.
Let's do it.
So in 2012, which is when I started online dating, I had not met this gentleman here quite yet. I started in 2012. This is the year that Tinder launched. And so Whitney Herd was one of the original co-founders of Tinder. She was a huge part of its success. And that's what this new movie, Swiped, is really talking about, is this time with her and Tinder and sort of like how she ends up launching Bumble and what her sort of intentions are is what the movie is around. So after Tinder gets really big, the guys try and like cut her out of being a co-founder. Then she leaves. She sues them for discrimination and harassment, wins, and then starts Bumble in 2014. She starts it, as you know, as this like women empowered app where the ladies are supposed to make the first move. At first, that went really well. And then over time, that started to feel a little discriminatory itself.
Oh, the irony.
Oh, the irony. And so now they've kind of like moved into this other new era. And in general, dating apps have been struggling, right? Match Group, which is like the huge, ginormous company that owns most of the big apps, Tinder, Plenty Fish, Hinge,
Match.com,
Match, a lot of the big ones.
eHarmony.
Yeah, I think they're in eHarmony. They don't own.
I think my mom and stepdad met each other on eHarmony back in the day.
Nice.
Yeah.
Apps in general, Match Group is seeing a decrease in users, and that makes sense, especially because Gen Z does not find them to be as helpful as millennials did. I think they really like got cool and hot during our sort of heyday in dating. Before that, eHarmony especially, and original like OG Match.com and even original OkCupid was a lot more like essays about yourselves, and it was a lot more deep and personal. It was a little bit skewed towards the older generation of finding love, and
people that were willing to actually write shit about themselves instead of just clicking personality traits.
And Tinder is a huge spinoff of Grindr, which was part of the gay dating scene, and that was why, I mean, Tinder was definitely seen and still is seen as more of a hookup app. And I actually don't have judgment or feelings about that.
Grindr is not only the gay dating app, it's also the Republican dating app, I've heard. So
would you like to expand on that?
Oh, just that every time, some very outspoken critic of the LGBT community is caught dating, it's usually on Grindr.
Whoopsie. La la la. So one reason I wanted to go into the history of that is I started my online dating journey in 2012 on the original desktop version of OkCupid. I loved it. Had some great dates and even a relationship off there.
Do you still have the stuff you wrote in your profile about from that time?
I definitely saved, because I wrote about my first 10 dates. I never published anything, but I wrote about them.
But about your profile, I am Carrie Prince and I like going on.
I'm pretty sure I saved,
blah, blah.
Yeah, I saved the photos that I had. I'm pretty sure I saved my profile. Maybe. Like because I was writing about it, I figured I would.
Amazing. I kind of want to read that.
I know. Maybe we'll release that too. Like if we have like fan tiers on Patreon, which is coming up in a few months, maybe I'll release that if anybody cares at all.
Nice.
Yeah.
I do. I'll be a Patreon member.
Yeah. So when did you start online dating?
So in 2012, I was going back to school at UCLA, and I still had a flip phone, actually. So even if I had wanted to, I was unable to partake in the Tinder craze. And looking back, that's a damn shame. No, but I got married soon thereafter and never really got into online dating.
Not to me.
Not to her. After the divorce, I got onto the apps. Yeah. I was on Hinge. I was definitely on Tinder. I was on Bumble. And I think that's pretty much it. There were maybe like one or two that I dabbled in, but I mean, with those three, there's you spend a lot of time on those three apps, swiping and messaging and all that stuff. So those three were plenty for me.
And this is COVID time, right?
Yeah, this was just post-COVID.
Post-COVID. Yeah, he was not like hooking up with, coronavirus sickies.
No, that was after. It was during the time where it was like they started introducing vaccinated, unvaccinated as a profile choice. So I was definitely filtering for vaccinated people at that time.
Yeah. Ooh, that filter choice. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
So you have a little less experience on the apps, but here's one reason why I'm going through the history of the apps too, is that both of us have had really positive experiences with the apps in general.
Mm-hmm. I would say I've had negative experiences as well, but I look back on even the negative experiences as a positive. Like it was still, a human interaction in a time where I was seeking out human interaction. So
yeah,
I think I don't know. We both had really positive things to say, and we both liked online dating. About half of people that do online dating disagree with that. They don't like online dating at all.
That's right. The statistics now, people who say that they enjoy it or that they think it's a viable means of meeting people, now over half of people say it's not a good experience and not a good way of meeting people.
Do you know what the gender breakdown is of that?
More women, or
should I say sex? I don't know what's politically correct.
Doesn't matter. Okay. I mean, sex and gender could be lots of different things now, right? Like it's a mixed match.
Yes.
So I would say women and men have different reasons why they think it's bad, right? Mm-hmm. Men have a lot of problems getting responses and getting they would go on more dates if they could, and women feel that the quality is low.
Yeah.
That's just a very general, broad sort of thing, right?
I mean, if we're talking about Bumble, you had said that the women's messaging first started to feel discriminatory or whatever in its own way. I got a different opinion about that.
Tell me.
I think women messaging first turns out people that generally people that message first don't know how to message first, man or woman. Hey, hi, I like your profile. That kind of shit. There was plenty of those messages that came to us, and so it was basically like the woman saying like, okay, I'll give you, you have a chance now to wow me with how you're going to woo me.
Yeah.
So I'll just put the ball
that's
in,
a very
in your court.
traditional, a very traditional courtship idea, right?
Yeah. So I mean, essentially, that's what matching is, though, right? Like the whole point of women messaging first was to prevent men from being sleazy, kind of like, being able to just slide dick pics into people's DMs or whatever.
But what happened, interestingly, and we're going to get into this in other episodes too, is that women started realizing they wanted to be chased. And they missed some sort of traditional courtship. And we're not going to get into that on this episode, but I do think that it's necessary to talk about that and how Bumble is evolving, because it's a woman-led company. It's someone who's gone through this transformation herself, and she's convinced she can make dating better. I do think that there's a slight asterisk there, which is she wants to make it better mostly for women. And I think that's great. But I never cared about having to message first on Bumble. I messaged first all the time when I was on Bumble or not. And again, I am someone who had a really good experience. And I encouraged people, if they saw, especially women, if they saw a profile that they were interested in at all because of the right reasons, to go ahead and get a conversation started and see what happened, because you cannot guarantee that person already saw you back the way that the apps work now.
Yeah. And I would say, boys, to those of you who are rolling their eyes about, this push to make dating better for women specifically, that makes it better for everyone, frankly, right? The happier the women are on the dating apps, the happier the men will be as well.
Yeah. And I do think there's hypocrisy on both sides. So I think men and women are both unhappy for legitimate reasons, and there's some hypocrisy on both sides. So going back to this whole Bumble situation, some of the things I think are interesting that I want your take on a little bit is Whitney says she wants the new app to pivot from relationships to self-love. The idea being, I assume, that if we love ourselves a little more and we have a better sense of ourselves, a stronger sense of ourselves, that our relationship seeking and our dating experience will be better. Before I get into it, what do you think?
My first thought is that's fantastic, but that's not a dating app.
Okay.
That's a therapy app. That's a self-help app, which are good things.
I think is probably what she went through a little bit.
Maybe, but if you've got a dating app, you should make a dating app work. You know what I mean? I think, and in my experience watching you do some date coaching and hearing, one-sided conversations and stuff, that is kind of your message of fixing the dater's perspective on mindset. Yeah. Fixing the mindset, fixing the perspective of what is this date going to be for me? What am I going to be experiencing? What do I want to get out of this date? But I think the primary function of an app like Bumble is to match two people together. That's what they're being paid to do by the users. So if she wants to frame it or have that be the kind of scaffolding through which she sets up these dates, that's fine. But its primary function is still going to be matching two people. Yeah.
And perhaps just like most hubs now, even matchmaking companies or dating companies that are including matchmaking now. I mean, it's a big world. Everybody knows that there's a lot of money to be made because people will pay a lot when they're sad and lonely. That's what we found out. Big surprise. And coming from the matchmaking world, matchmaking is a human matching other humans using a little bit of technology like databases and stuff like that.
Also, they gamified it a little bit, right? Like boost your profile now, and like you can buy all these little extra bonuses.
That's on the apps, but I'm talking about matchmaking.
Gotcha.
Like a human matchmaking other humans is a really expensive, time-intensive process with incredibly high stakes because of how expensive it is, which is why I don't recommend it to most people. And that's coming from a previous matchmaker who made all my money off of doing that.
But that's because I would say the clients that you had didn't. They assumed I'm paying X amount of dollars for this service and it's going to find me my spouse.
Yeah.
That's completely misguided and unrealistic. That's just not how the real world works. And so that goes back to the whole mindset thing, right? Is like getting these people into the right mindset. And that's kind of how I view matchmaking's success being, is like when you're done with this matchmaker, you may or may not find your person, right? You may very well find your person, but what you really should get out of it is the tool set that you can then use to then go out on your own to find your own match, to go on your own
And I
dates.
think that's why so many matchmaking companies are including coaching, which and kind of vice versa. I think that over and over again, people are finding that the more they farm out to technology, the less happy users are. And we keep learning the same hard lesson over and over. So when she says, I want our new motto to be the love company, nobody's going to say, oh, bad idea. It's just that everybody's trying to do the same thing. And so I've talked to people who are building apps that believe that it's all just about not getting the right perfect features that you're looking for. So if AI looks for that perfect face that you're actually attracted to, then somehow it'll make dating better. Bullshit.
What did that one woman tell you? She's like, my kind of guy is kind of looks like Hemsworth or Ryan Reynolds, you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, two of the sexiest men on the planet. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my type is, you know, the Heidi Klum,
Yeah.
you know, kind of vibe, you know, like what? Of course.
Yeah. The idea that people will fulfill you if you get what you want, like fulfill you in a relationship if you get what you want when you're making that list. I mean, again, you could go on You Can Date Better, which is my old blog on Medium. You can like look it up on Instagram. You can read those things over and over again. At the end of the day, nothing replaces learning through in-person experience. And so this idea that Whitney wants to create a love company, like, I'm all for it. And I hope that she develops better tools for people to manage themselves in the dating experience, which I hope is what she wants to do. I always say that the dating issues now with technology is not a tech problem, it's a people problem. And you can't solve this people problem with tech. You can't. You can always use tech as a tool, and it can be used as a really sexy tool. But at the end of the day, I think it's a people problem. So one thing I wanted to sort of like, maybe we can talk about our own experience with dating a little bit. And like you mentioned earlier, even negative experiences I had were good because blah. But I also know that you have some experiences where you had these confrontational moments that you really appreciated. And I want to preface this with something that Esther Perel, who's one of the most famous relationship therapists alive, she has so much to say about dating and the problems with dating now. She believes that we're losing social skills and we're losing our ability to manage things like rejection or even reject someone, which also feels horrible if you've ever had to do it, you know. And she feels that we're taking these easy routes to always feel good because we can always feel good behind a screen and we're always safe behind a screen. We can stop taking risks in our social lives. But that is what's hurting us. That's why we're having less sex. That's why we're not having a good time dating. It's why we can't find deep, meaningful relationships because we're not being vulnerable enough to do things like handle rejection.
Yeah.
And so I want to preface it with that and say, like, what are your stories about rejection and how did that work for you in real life?
Well, actually, this was one of the first women that I went out on a date with post divorce, and I thought it went reasonably well, and so I was like, sure, you know, like, let's go to a second date or whatever. So I texted her after the first date and invited her out to, I remember drive-in movies were kind of gaining popularity in the post.
Oh yeah, they had a little resurgence. Yeah.
So I invited her out to one of those with my neighbor at the time, and she texted back, thank you, I appreciate it, but I didn't feel a romantic connection. Wish you all the best. And my immediate reaction when I read that, I was like, oh, that's how you do that. That's how you just dump someone without, it didn't feel like a dump. It was just like, no thanks, best of luck, see you later. I was like,
on a scale of 1 to 10, how hurt were you?
Honestly, that was my first thought. Was like, oh, that's how you do it. So like, it was like
1.5.
Yeah, like it really wasn't that hurt. I mean, looking back on the date, I guess I could maybe have picked up more on of her clues, but like, still, I still was gonna reach out and say, because I was still into it with her, and I don't know, it just didn't. My ego has never been that fragile, I guess. That's something I'm fortunate to have a relatively resilient ego, but yeah, it was never that hurtful because it was more, she was framing it from her point of view. If I felt a romantic connection, well, that's one thing, but she didn't. So that's full stop.
How do you think you would have felt if she just ignored it?
That would have been a little bit rougher. I mean, it was always a little bit rougher to get ghosted, but...
Rougher. Did you hear that? It would have been rougher if she ignored it. I just want everyone to clock that for a second.
Why is that? Don't ghost?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the thing, is that it feels weird to send that text, what man or woman, gay or straight, whatever, to send that text of like, thanks, but I didn't feel a connection. You feel like a little what when you go to send that, right? You're like, oh, this is, I don't want to hurt someone. Right?
Knowing her, she didn't feel that.
Oh, really?
No, but yeah, no, I definitely, nobody likes being ghosted. So yeah, I definitely agree with you there, but also like, just move on with your life. Who cares, honestly?
And then you learned how to do it, and you used that tool later, didn't you?
Absolutely. I used that line verbatim. I don't feel a romantic connection. I wish you the best.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
And maybe not the goodbye. Wish you the best is enough of a sign off. But yeah, that's what I said. I was like, oh my God, she just taught me something. You know, you know what I mean? But
and more important than just telling you what the words are, what I would try and get clients to understand is she's also teaching you how it feels to do something well, which is that the hurt is really minimized when you do something with clarity. Clear is kind, as Brene Brown says, right? Clear is kind. You do something with clarity and kindness, and you don't wait, and you don't ignore, and you don't postpone, right? There could be a lot more said for people that like maybe send that text too soon and don't give it a chance, separate conversation. But like, she didn't feel it. She didn't want to go on a second date.
She doesn't owe me more time. She didn't owe me a second date to see if there was a connection there.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't feel it for one reason or the other. You know, that's it.
Yeah.
And the way that she phrased it too is like, it wasn't like a personal thing. It wasn't like you made me feel this way, or, you know, you didn't do X, Y, or Z. It was just like, I didn't feel a connection. And by definition, a romantic connection is a two-way street.
Yeah.
So
the learning here and the self-love and the feelings and all that stuff, my point that I keep saying over and over is this is happening after these two people have met and gone through a thing with each other. This is not something that an app can negotiate for them anymore. They are on their own. They're learning these social skills and like going through the feelings as a process of learning. And it's not that I want everyone to go out and get rejected and get hurt to learn, but that process, I think that's what I do think that's the same thing that happens with little kids, right? If we protect them from being hurt or socially negotiating with each other when they're little kids, they really don't get it.
Force them to play with people they don't, you know what I mean? Like playground rejection is like the first kind of rejection that you kind of learn to live with. I'm not advocating bullying on the schoolyard or anything like that, but I mean, that is an important part of growing up.
Yeah. So to that end, I'm wondering, I think people are trying to come up with like AI coaches and therapists that walk people through these feelings a little bit. Like, let's say someone's not Douglas and they don't have this maturity of like, oh, that doesn't hurt that bad. I'm really glad she was clear. Great. No second date, right? Not everyone's going to have that reaction. Some people that would send them into a downward spiral, and they might need to see their therapist about it because it's coming from some sort of childhood trauma, or they might need to go see a dating coach about it because they need to figure out how to find the next steps forward while kind of making sure they're taking care of themselves and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think some of the things that I read online, this might be extreme. Don't also assume that like this, you can learn anything else from that person, right? Like, she's not going to have to explain to you why the connection wasn't there. She doesn't have to explain to you what about your profile she liked and didn't, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like, you're going to have to kind of mix and match. And I think one of the things that you and I don't know about you because I only saw your profile once and I was hooked and cast my line. But I change my profile all the time. You know what I mean? Like I changed little blurbs. I saw something I thought was funny. I took a picture. Actually, this is a true story. When she and I first met, I had started playing soccer again with my cousins and my grandmother, who's since passed away. My grandmother spent a lot of time at my aunt's house in the backyard. And I was in my soccer uniform hanging out there one day after a soccer game, and I was sitting next to Grandma, and my cousin Frankie was there, and I was like, hey, Frankie, can you take a picture of us real quick? And I took a picture of me and my grandma smiling, and the whole reason I took that picture was I was like, this is a good dating profile picture. This is 100% going in my dating profile. And it stayed. And it worked.
It did work. It totally worked.
Yeah.
Because I told him, he was like, we were talking about our profiles at some point in the first parts of dating. And I was like, that soccer pic you have of your grandma is so cute. Blah,
yes,
blah, blah.
sir. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that.
As long as it's not fake, which it wasn't. She was one of the first family members I met.
Totally. There was nothing disingenuous about that picture. You know, I play soccer with my family and I hang out with my grandma sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, both of those things are true. So don't feel bad about, like, I don't want to say gaming your profile, but don't feel bad about, like, tailoring your profile, about, you know, tweaking it to give off the vibe that you want to give off, you know? Like, I love my grandma, and I play sports, and I don't need to take a shirtless picture in the bathroom.
I was just about to
next
say,
to my grandma.
Do you know what happens in the brain of something? This is what I would try and get people to think about when they're going through online profiles. And this is why I think I was so good at it. I was really good at nailing, like, if a profile was real and genuine and values-based. I see a picture like that, and what I'm reading is, if this is true, this guy has family that he loves and cares about, and he's not ashamed to put a picture of him and grandma up there. He looked a little sporty with his ball. I like people that, you know, like to use their bodies in some way. It doesn't have to be
soccer ball.
Good correction. But it's the family part, that values driven sort of family part. So, like, had he done sort of like a weird mirror gym selfie thing, even though you might think to yourself, well, that's the same thing, he's trying to show you he's active or whatever. It's not. If you're going for, at which we can talk about this too, like why people are on the apps, there are all different reasons, not just long-term relationship, monogamy, marriage sort of stuff. But that is a strong symbol of how you spend your time and where your values are at. And that's a really great picture. And these days pictures are tricky because everyone's being careful and putting smiley faces over everyone who they don't know. And, you know, there's some, like, online safety concerns now with pictures.
I think I told my grandma when you met her that, like, I had staged that photo.
She probably
with her.
loved it.
She laughed her butt off.
Yeah, she did.
She was fantastic. So, yeah, I mean, I think some of the apps might require, if it's a minor, you don't show their face. That's great.
Yeah.
But, you know, just try to be your natural self. Standing in front of a mirror and taking a shirtless selfie, that's not your natural self.
Yeah.
At least I hope it isn't.
That kind of leads me into a different portion of this whole thing about, like, if Bumble wants to go this direction of, like, you know, self-love and how we are our best selves in dating, I also think that's great. But dating apps also serve another function, right? They are for people to find long-lasting love, marriage, deep connected relationships. They also are a tool for just dating, having fun, and hooking up. And I have no judgment between those two things. You can want whatever you want. I would encourage you to be really safe, but want what you want.
Yes, certainly, absolutely be safe. Not just, we're talking about, you know, condoms and protection, but women, be safe. Don't give your phone number. Yeah. Don't give your home address, you know, all that stuff. Absolutely. But you can do both on these dating profiles. And in fact, if you're looking to hook up, I didn't change my dating profile based on whether I wanted to hook up or be in a serious relationship. It was always sort of the serious relationship vibe, because that's the safe vibe. That's the, like, you know, I can trust this person. He's not a fuck boy, but if he is, you know, great. and you can do both on those apps.
Yeah.
Responsibly.
I do think you can do both. And this is one of the hardest parts, I think, about date coaching, is that one thing that I heard from candidates, when I say candidates, I mean people who maybe I was, like, screening to go on a date with a client, or just talking to singles in the world about their experience in dating, not necessarily like my date coaching clients, although I would ask them about these things too. But one interesting thing is that, like, people perform the bad behavior they say they don't like all the time because we're human and we're hypocritical, and we're always going to fall into that trap of, I hate being ghosted, but I've ghosted. Oh, I hate it when people do this one thing, but yeah, I've done it before when I was.
I hate it when men just message "Hey" as their first message, and then it turns out like 8 out of 10 women on Bumble, if not more, also did that.
Yeah. And dating and your intention on dating changes over time. When I first got on the apps in 2012, actually I shouldn't say apps, when I first got on the dating websites in 2012.
Okay, Cupid.
I really was I was single, so I was being honest about like dating, but I was also doing it as a little bit of an experiment to see how it felt to do this and who the people were. And if it, at that time it was really sort of like people really looked down on it. Mm-hmm. I had a show back then called Carry the Conversation I did for a local radio show. And we did this show on dating in LA. And no one at the table had done it except for like one person had like accidentally done a funny thing on Craigslist or something. It was like a very funny story, but nobody had done it and nobody would consider it. And I was like, that is a bunch of BS. I'm going to do it. So I promised that I would go on 10 dates. And like I said, I wrote about it, didn't publish at the time because it felt a little icky to like go on dates and then write about it if I was being genuine, blah, blah. But the idea was like, what is all this? And then it turns out it's wonderful, real people who actually are looking to date and find love. And sometimes those things would be just like fun dates where we would like get drunk and make out. And then that was that. And I realized like, I don't really want to see this person anymore. And then sometimes I was interested in a second or third date. And then by the end of that 10, in fact, I think I went on 11, I ended up having a long-term relationship out of one of those people.
Wow.
Yeah.
On the 11th or like?
I think it was the 11th. I want to say it was the 11th. Because I had like an in-person real date in there that I wrote about too to kind of compare.
What do you mean an in-person real
Like it
date?
wasn't from the apps. Like it was someone that
it's like friend of a friend sort of thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that experience, luckily, there was a woman that I knew in the office that like primed me and gave me the right mindset. As we talked about having the right mindset, she told me you're going to have so much fun. You're going to meet so many great people. She didn't shit all over it, which I love so much. And I thank her to this day that I got to talk to her about it. She's like, she was at the time married and she's like, I didn't meet my husband online, but I had such a good time online dating. You're going to love this. Best of luck. She gave me a few little tips and tricks. And that's how I went into it of like, okay, no, this is going to be okay. Someone I trusted did it. She had fun. She had the right mindset going in. I am a more extroverted person, but Dougie's not.
Yeah. One of my favorite things that you try to get people to do was to imagine if you knew that after 20 dates, that on the 21st date, you were going to find your person.
Yeah.
You would be like just attacking those first 20 dates with as much vigor and energy as you could.
Usually the question I ask is, how would you approach those first 19 dates or whatever? Like, what would you do with those first 19? Would you throw those people away or would you try and get something out of it?
Yeah. But you would also not necessarily dread them. And I think that's what the negative framing from people that shit all over online dating. I think they put people into this negative attitude about like, oh, this is going to suck. This guy's going to be a creep, or this chick is going to be boring, or whatever it is. Which
we both, I'm sure, had those experiences too. Here's the other thing. Just because I had a really great track record in terms of going on real dates and stuff, partly that's because I really coached myself into like, as soon as I like someone, get on a video date. And then if I like the video date, set up a coffee or a drink or something. Like I was really structured about it, and not really caring if I like felt the spark or whatever. It was just like, oh, nice guy. Like even that's how I felt about Dougie actually. At first I was like, oh, nice guy. We had 2 long video dates before we had our first in-person date. Long video dates, and he was
the first one being like immediately after matching.
Yeah, I think it was in like within 20 minutes of matching.
Because you made a joke about fastest match to conversation or something. I think so, and I was like, why don't we make this the fastest match to drinks or something? And
that competitive nature has never altered.
Being my cheeky self. And then you said, well, how about fastest match to video date? And I looked around and I was like, I've kept my apartment clean. I've got a couple cats that she'll probably love. Let's fucking do this. And so we hopped on a video date, and the rest is history.
Well, kind of. We had so much drama after our first in-person date for a while, not with each other, but with other things. It's like a different episode to talk about.
Yes.
But my point was like, I did go on dates where the person wasn't right for me and the person was boring. I did have conversations on the app that like went nowhere. I got ghosted, all those things. I just didn't let it get to me at all. I was like, yeah, well, they're not serious. Great. Moving on. Oh, well, they're a little weird. Moving on. Oh, well, block them. I don't care.
Yeah.
I like really tried to focus on the people that were interesting or were good. And then what I did was I involved people in my dating life to such an extent that like if I had a really funny story, then I would use that date as an opportunity to talk to my friends about it. Like, you guys, I just went on this date. It was so weird. Let me tell you about it. And I treated it like my life is rich with experience for having gone through these things. That's how I framed it for myself.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I mean, I can remember one date I went on with, I think she was an epidemiologist, and this is in the post-COVID era.
Sexy.
So, yeah, and I thought so too. She was very attractive. But the whole date, all she was talking about was how in the past she'd be with guys and they find out she's a doctor and then they start acting like she's going to be their sugar mama or something. It was basically all she talked about the whole time. So I gave her the romantic connection line, and I think she was surprised based on the text. She's like, oh, okay. You know, like, all right, well, good luck. You know, like she wasn't expecting it. I was like, that's right. That's right.
You rejected a doctor.
A librarian rejecting a doctor.
That's what he wanted to tell everyone, really.
That's right. Probably should have let that go to the second date, maybe. I don't know. Well, whatever. Yeah.
Too late now.
Too late.
So, you know, these in-person experiences that both of us had, good, bad, whatever, I think that era might be actually a little bit gone. Neither of us have been on the apps in over 4 years now, to my knowledge anyway.
Just to go back real quick, all the ones that you're talking about were in-person experiences, right? That's the point. Yeah. Even the good ones and the bad ones that we remember and that we're talking about and we actually think about fondly were in person. So like, I don't remember a single text exchange that I had with somebody that either ghosted me or we never ended up connecting. I don't remember that at all. But I remember pretty much every in-person date for one reason or another, you know? And I think that's what people are afraid of, is even if I have a negative experience in person, first of all, I'm going to have a negative experience in person. That's just a foregone conclusion. But then that negative experience is going to be a negative memory. And I don't think that's true. Yeah.
Interesting. I have not thought of it exactly in that way. I know I early on in the desktop OkCupid days, these were the days where you could search anyone on the site, right? This wasn't a feed you one at a time profile days. This was like open search. And basically, as soon as you got on OkCupid, you had like your inbox started getting crazy. And one thing that happened then that I'm thankful doesn't happen now is that people would come up with whole relationship stories with you, ignoring them over many, they would send you a long thing and then you don't say anything back. And I'd say, I can't believe you're rejecting me and blah, blah, blah. And you're the worst person. They would send you like letters of this whole emotional cycle they're going through by themselves.
It's like the Eminem song, Stan.
Yeah. It actually, that's a good parallel because it felt like that. And that part of early sites, I think, was problematic. And I do think the one at a time sort of thing, even though swiping being gamified and what we're finding about what it does to people's brains similar to a casino is problematic.
It's still paralyzed by choice as well.
Yes. Yeah. There were other things that were bad about the early days too. I can long for them in some ways, but then I'm really glad that there's better safety precautions in other ways. I think the location-based dating stuff is good.
Yeah, less reading too. But yeah, absolutely. Wait,
less reading, says a librarian.
Okay, the OkCupid stuff wasn't location-based? So like somebody from Washington or whatever?
Oh yeah,
DC
you got messages from all over the country.
Wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. Because again, you could search the whole database basically.
Jesus.
You know what they got right though? And here's what's so funny about Bumble and everybody trying to like reinvent the wheel all the time. Actually, one of the most successful matching things that OkCupid did back in the day was they had all these questions and you could or couldn't answer the questions. Of course, I'm going to go in there and answer all those questions. As many as you can. There's like hundreds. And you answer a bunch of questions and they go through like politics and family. There's lots of questions, but here's what was so brilliant about it. You could answer the question and then you could comment on the question. And what that does is allows you to like have the answer and it can match you based on that. But if you go through someone's answers and you see that they've like made a little comment by the question, usually that's more informative than the answer. For example, if it's like, how do you feel about gun safety, right? Someone could answer the question that could feel really strong, but if they make a funny comment next to it and like, well, I shot a shotgun when I was 10 and it killed a squirrel, so I don't know anymore, suddenly that like takes the heat out of the question, and you're getting to know their personality through that comment a lot more than anything else. I had tons of comments on my questions, most of which were probably trying to be funny. And that connected me to people that I really liked.
That's one of the things, I think, was it Hinge or Bumble, where you only had a select number of captions for your photos and you had to pick one of those. I hated that.
Well, that's actually a common feature on a lot of them now. So like Hinge has prompts, Bumble has prompts. I think a lot of them are going, what they're trying to do is to get people to have conversations, which we're a big fan of, right?
Sure, yeah.
Talking to people.
Yeah, but I don't know, you couldn't really let like the picture with my grandma, like what, Mondays, am I right? Like what caption from their like list of canned captions. I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of that because, again, you couldn't really let your personality kind of shine. But I understand the impulse, right? It's like sometimes writing captions and trying to be witty on everything is tough, and it puts a lot of pressure on people. So I get having those canned options or whatever, but here's me and my grandma. Like, what's wrong with that as a caption? Like, I don't know.
So the genius of those early match percentages with OkCupid was great, and that has come back in a big way, right? Like Hinge, which was one of my biggest recommends, depending on what city you lived in, if it was popular in that city, was one of my favorites because it encouraged conversation. And one of my huge recommendations to clients all the time was be specific and be current. Like Dougie said, you want to be changing your profile all the time. You want to talk about the museum exhibit that you want to see this month. You want to talk about the Radio Lab episode you just listened to, the People Fuss episode that you just listened to that you can't wait to talk about. And so that was something that I did, and I really appreciated it when it seemed like someone was alive on the app. Like they obviously checked it, they cared about like looking at it, and they were actually looking for someone. It made it feel like they cared.
Totally. You said you recommended Hinge based on the city. Do you know off the top of your head? I mean, this might be out of date information, but do you remember which cities Hinge was big in?
Well, generally the bigger ones. So like LA, New York, San Francisco, San Diego, like you have to think of whoever has, and actually we're going to talk about scaling in a second, because one of the reasons I think apps can't be the solver of this is that you need to be able to scale technology to be profitable. And that's just one of the things that is hard. And in order to scale, you have to get as many users as you can. And getting as many users as you can is sort of in competition with being particular about putting people together that match, right? There are these warring concepts in trying to use technology and then also scale for profit that don't work, which is why matchmaking and involving matchmakers, I think AI matchmaking is like would always lean towards like the profitability for scale. So like they're going to match people no matter what. Whereas a human matchmaker would be like, no, those two people aren't right for each other. I don't care if there's no one else. They're not right for each other, right? They're going to kill each other. An AI matcher would be like, this is the best in the pool. Here.
Yeah, well,
it's
like Napoleon said about Tinder, quantity has a quality all of its own.
So that's one of the other things about what's happening with like anybody that from a tech company that says I can solve it. If they're also trying to solve it by being worldwide and having the biggest pool of people ever, everyone thinks, well, that's great because that's a huge amount of people that are on the platform. But actually, usually what's so successful early on, like if you think about, I live in Los Angeles, so I want to meet someone in Los Angeles, I'm going to stay here forever. I'm going to get a Los Angeles matchmaker to find me someone in LA. They know all the singles in LA, and they're going to pair me with the best person that based on how they know me and how they know this other person. That's like the sweetest, most traditional way of thinking of a matchmaker. You know everyone that you have in your pool.
Yeah.
You have this special intuition about people, and I do think that's true for most matchmakers. I think they absolutely want to do that. I think they are genuine in wanting to connect people. I know I was, even if I didn't always do it super successfully, because you just can't 100% of the time. It's impossible. But the idea that like an app can get that good and then also be profitable and scale, I don't think those things go together.
Talk to us a little bit, Carrie, about narrowing down that giant database. So if you're on the app and you've got all these filters, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you narrow down your prospective dating pool? How do you tell people to do that?
Well, most people are trying. It depends. So I have one friend who narrows it down so much that she runs out of matches. In that case, you need to expand her.
6'2" or taller, that kind of thing.
Actually, I don't think it was that. Well, height might have been a slight one. I don't think it was 6'2". It's probably more reasonable than that. I think it was education and location. She was trying to go within like 2 miles of her. And I was like, oh, girl. Oh, my God. Okay, stop.
Quick funny aside. I think my distance on the app that we met on was like 15 miles or something. That's pretty reasonable. But turns out in LA, that was like opposite corners almost of the county. 15 miles as the crow flies, but it was like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours commute during rush hour for us to meet each other. So just keep that in mind while you're dating too. Like you said, 2 mile radius. Come on, be real.
Yeah.
Maybe 15-mile radius, depending on where you live. Maybe
I think
more.
2 hour radius is good if you have the video date rule, because you were absolutely happy to drive that hour and a half to our first dinner when we had a nice date, right?
Yes.
If you had a bad date, you would have been like, I wish I hadn't driven so far.
Yeah, exactly.
But having two video dates beforehand, Didio dates, I kind of like that for some weird reason.
I don't know. Diddy dates?
Oh, I wasn't thinking about like Pete. Okay, never mind. Moving on. No, we're cutting this. Not making the podcast. It's his new favorite audio clip that he loaded onto the mixer. Oh my God.
I knew it'd come in handy at least once an episode.
And that was based on you. But yeah, I mean, people have all these regrets if they have a bad experience, but then there's plenty of times where it works for you, which is why the video date is brilliant. Just going to keep plugging for video dates.
Absolutely.
Which, with the advent of AI becoming stronger as a means to change your appearance on video, I don't know how that's going to work out in the next year or two. But
I think the way it's going to work out, my theory would be that you do the video dates through the app, which guarantees no filters and guarantees no AI video bot thing or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're doing it on Zoom or FaceTime or whatever else you're doing it on, there might be some sort of filter. Oh, speaking of filters, ladies, don't. Just don't.
And gentlemen now.
Sure, but I wasn't looking at a lot of men's profiles.
Yeah,
so
fair.
just don't. I mean, at least for me, like if I saw a filter on one of the pictures, it was just almost an automatic swipe left or right, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
It's just not good. Not a good
So
look.
if you don't want to date Doug, don't use a filter. Is what we just said.
Exactly.
No, everyone's different with that. You know, some guys aren't as. I think a lot of guys would agree with you that they say that they would rather see the real thing. But again, it's sort of like Candy in the casino thing. It's like they see this picture of what they think is a hot person and they're going to be lured to it. And women think that's what they're doing, is like luring, you know.
No, all you're doing is making me think like, well, what do you actually look like that you think you need this awful porcelain filter?
Yeah. Guys, to be fair on the other side, guys and their angles and in the bathroom and with their stained shirts. I mean, there's another side to it.
If you're gonna take a selfie in the bathroom mirror, at least clean the fucking mirror. Okay?
But just don't, though.
But if you're gonna, at least clean the mirror.
Yeah. There's always like a hamper in the back with like their underwear hanging out or
like
something.
Like a toothbrush just like laying on it. It's like, dude.
Yeah.
Women see these things.
Yeah.
They're not looking at your abs.
There's a lot to be said for social norms. And even after all these years, and this is what I'm saying, every single app has tried to do this, tried to get people to have better profiles, better interactions with each other to encourage good behavior. Mm-hmm. And what I found, again, talking to thousands of people, coaching people through online dating myself for many years, is bad behavior gets negative feelings, gets bad behavior and more bad behavior. So like I always would tell clients, be the dater you want to see in the world no matter what. And you're always going to be attracted to the person that gives you that same energy back. Yeah. So if someone is being unresponsive for an inexcusable amount of time, not 4 hours. People have lives, right? Inexcusable. So if you're trying to set up a date and they don't get back to you in the next 48 hours and you don't want to move off the app and they do because they don't check the app, there's like all these things that happen and we all make up these excuses about why things aren't working. But like at the end of the day, the person that is making it work with you is the person that wants to date with you. So I'd always say, like, give a little benefit of the doubt and space for grace for sure, but don't chase people if they're not responding in a positive way.
And also try to check your own attitude, like just check in with yourself. I mean, so like if you're feeling cynical because some bitch just ghosted you or whatever, and you're kind of angry and feeling bitter, that's probably not a good time to go on the apps and start talking to people, because you're going to carry that bitterness into the next interaction, most likely. And then the cycle continues.
Yeah. Speaking of cycles, ladies, your cycles are important. You should get on the apps and flirt when you're in your high hormone phase and you're feeling good and sexy. And then if you're feeling kind of like negative and grumpy and maybe it's during PMS week, the week before your period, just take a break from the apps. I tell clients that all the time. Like, listen to your cycle, listen to your hormones. It's telling you when you want to flirt and it's telling you when you need a break.
Totally.
Yeah.
Boys, when you're feeling bloated, just don't.
You are bloated sometimes.
Very much so.
I don't know what you ate the other night, babe.
Broccoli.
It's so good though. Okay. While I love talking about apps and how to date because, you know, I did it for years, I also want to sort of put this theory out there that I think you could probably surmise by now, but like, I don't think technology will solve dating.
No.
My theory is technology will not solve dating. However, it can always be used as a tool and help you get to the in-person experience. And this is true even of friendships and family things. And this is not just for singles and people or people that are like, have been married a long time. They're thinking like, how does this apply to me? What we're finding is that people are limiting their in-person experiences in general. Young people don't do sleepovers anymore as teenagers. They don't like
even as grade school kids or whatever.
Yeah. I meant like young teenagers, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. 17-year-old sleepovers. No, not in my house. I don't know. So yeah, 12-year-olds, 12-year-old, 11-year-old, 10-year-olds. That's when I was doing sleepovers. When were you doing sleepovers?
I guess all growing up.
I guess it's different for girls growing up.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you could shed light on that.
Boys didn't have hair to do, and we played video games online with one another, I guess. That was our connection.
But even before online video games.
I did have sleepover LAN parties. I carried my big old CRT monitor over to my buddy's house, and we stayed up all night. It's funny calling it a sleepover because you don't sleep. But you don't sleep. You don't sleep is my point.
Okay.
We just played video games all night and ate ramen.
Yeah. So
I miss you, Andrew. Good times. Good times.
These in-person experiences are incredibly important, whether we feel or remember they are or not. So here's something that I know has gotten really popular in the last few years, especially for, I want to say our generation, but I think also a little bit younger, is that you deny seeing people in person because of like self-care, or I just need time to myself, or I just, there's always this excuse of like, I need more time to myself. Mm-hmm. But then there's also this feeling of disconnection and loneliness. And I think that there's like a misunderstanding of how much people need.
And that goes back to the framing and mindset, right? If you're looking at this experience, this potential online experience or in-person experience, as a net positive for yourself, right? Even if it's a negative experience, it's not going to be a negative memory kind of thing. Then that is me time. The date was always me time, especially because I love food. So I was like always going to a new restaurant or something like that. At the very least, I knew I was like, well, I'm going to have a good meal and, maybe the conversation will suck. And sometimes it did. And then just move on.
Yeah.
Speaking of, the human interaction and technology replacing human interaction, we kind of saw this with the latest ChatGPT rollout, right? They went from ChatGPT 4 to ChatGPT 5, and people were bitching because ChatGPT 5 was too impersonal, and that they missed using ChatGPT 4 as a therapist.
Well,
and as a friend,
it lost everything they knew about them, so the personality that they knew was gone, right? It was like a reboot.
Sort of. Well, no, I mean the memory was. You you have to say, save this to memory, and then it updates its memory or whatever, and then it'll remember things.
What
that
I
you
was
tell
hearing
it.
though is that was a fix after everyone freaked out because their best chatty friend didn't know them anymore. That's what I was
maybe
hearing.
But even if that's the case, if you're losing a friend and that friend is ChatGPT, that's not a good place to be.
Babe, that's what I'm saying. This is actually Mark Zuckerberg's vision of the future, is that lonely people will have friends on Meta, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing in his mind, is that we're the thing that's filling our human heart of loneliness is having a fake AI friend online.
Yeah, not friends via Facebook, but like fake friends on Meta.
And part of the scary part about all this is like kind of like you mentioned before, the idea that we're relying on something that has no balance in terms of giving us real social hurdles to overcome. So like one thing that happened in some of these AI iterations is that they were way too complimentary. They're making everyone so self-inflated about how great they are and how they feel about themselves.
What an insightful question. Yeah. That was the smartest question I've ever heard.
And my fear is that just kind of how like porn gives you whatever you want to satisfy this pleasure-seeking behavior that you have. And in real life, you have to work quite hard usually to get something that's really good and connected in a sexual sense. The fear is that like all things like that, if they're easily gettable by an AI, the in-person human experience will degrade to such a point that we're sitting here confused. Like, why do I feel so sad and lonely, even though I'm satisfying all my needs with online resources? Yeah. And it goes back to that whole biology thing. Like, this is what I'm saying.
Dopamine.
In person. There's so much that we still don't understand about what it just means to go and sit around and talk with people. And this is such a lame thing, but I will say I love my group of friends in LA because we literally get together to just sit around and talk. We don't have to go to a fancy restaurant. Sometimes we use our AMC Stubs membership when we go see movies together. But what I love about it is that we chat about the movie afterwards. We like get into it and whether we liked it or not. And this is filmmaker people, so we chat about all sorts of snooty things about filmmaking too. But we really do just get together around a fire pit and chat for hours because that satisfies a deep human need.
Yeah.
And it allows us to get altering perspectives. I mean, we don't always all agree on things. We have people that have different perspectives and we negotiate those differences in conversations. And there's lots of laughing and there's sharing of food. There's this like really ancient glue, which is how humans fucking survived, is that they banded together and did things together. And they didn't just isolate themselves and only like have a picture to like satisfy their loneliness all the time. I mean, you have to have in-person experiences.
Boga. Swipe left. Didn't happen.
So last thing that we want to go through is actually how technology can be a tool and how it is positive and can help. Because I am not anti-technology.
No.
Look at all the technology we are around right now.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get you to connect with each other.
And we met online.
Yeah.
We connected with dating apps.
Yeah.
And now I talk to AI. I don't.
You talk to me a lot still. I don't know.
I do.
Yeah.
I talk to ChatGPT, but not about like friendship stuff.
Yeah.
That's
here's
distressing.
Here's some examples of where I love how technology has sort of encouraged people to have better, more fulfilling lives. There are things like, if you've heard of So Far Sounds, it's these sort of like music events where you get notified of exactly what it is and where it is kind of last minute. And a lot of people go, it's these intimate local musicians and stuff. You go to these intimate settings to have these in-person experiences. There's something about the technology that makes it sexier, right? Because it feels like a secret. You have to have your thing. You have to check it and whatever. But the idea is that then you show up to the place and then you're in an intimate space and then you get to like review it and chat about it afterwards. Yeah. That's totally my jam.
I love that, actually. A shared, like a planned, impromptu shared experience.
Yes,
and you don't know who you're sharing the experience with, but you know that you're going to enjoy the experience because it's live music and live music is awesome. So you're just going to go. You're going to have a good time with the music. And if you meet somebody, you meet somebody.
Yeah. And I that's one thing I would recommend to people that are, it's usually in larger cities, but So Far Sounds is one of those things. It's not necessarily like an app, not like a dating app, but it's something where like technology makes it possible for us to do something impromptu last minute. And it brings a lot of people together. It's like cool. It's a little bit underground in some ways. Like, I don't know. I really like it. The other thing I think is like, although I know that the way AI is matching people, the current iteration of what people are talking about with like AI avatars is like you would have a dating AI avatar, someone else has a dating AI avatar, those avatars interact, see if they think their humans would get along, and then like maybe you're introduced. It's like AI matchmaking kind of, right?
Yeah.
And that iteration of it, I just, if we're going to be profitable and scale, then that technology has a conflict of interest. I will never stop saying that. But,
yes. But if it gets you to go in person, then it's a good thing.
Yeah. And somehow there needs to be a way so the success, it has to stay small enough so that the success works like it would recommending a matchmaker, right? Hinge is they got so close, but I think just the nature again of having to scale is just really tough. And the groups that have to like maintain safety on these apps are so big and expensive when you're opening up to the public so that you can try and make money.
Yeah.
But something like, an AI setting up a quick video date of the real people, I would be curious to see how it does. I'm not saying it's going to work. I'm just saying if I were to create something tomorrow, it would be to like start local, because I think it should always start local, and that's usually how it's more successful. And then see if you could get something that was able to get people on a quick date, but then also download about the dates afterwards. Because one of the things I think I had that not everyone has is a place to like hand off your experience, your emotional experience somehow. I talked about my dating experience so much. I talked about my dates, good or bad. I was able to have these like really great people that would listen to me about my dating experience.
And you had a blog on Medium that was cathartic in a way. It wasn't necessarily a feedback, mechanism for feedback per se, but it was a good way for you to, process what had been going on.
And I wrote that in and out of long-term relationships too, right? Like I wrote about dating no matter what, but I certainly think if you have some outlet for your experience and processing what you're learning through the experience, even if you have a bad date, just processing, like getting it out, like, ugh, I need to go see someone I like now because that was a bad experience or whatever. And then the other thing is I was wondering about, I also dealt with a lot of daters who really were lacking social skills in some really critical ways, and they knew that and they wanted to get better at it. There were people that really needed to go to therapy and they understood that they would take a break from dating, go to therapy. But then I also dealt with a lot of clients that were on the spectrum or had ADHD. I dealt with clients that like really didn't understand some of the social norms of dating. Maybe they were like in a culturally different place and then they were dating in the US and it wasn't really the same. So sometimes you really do have these like just legitimate learning curves for people that like need to understand the dating space. And in that way, I could see AI being a good tool if like, let's say there's a rejection role play and how you're supposed to go through this and how, like, if someone didn't have the experience in real life, going through that and saying like, okay, you just received this message, I don't know. I don't know how this would go, but I'm trying to think of like how it would improve the in-person experience.
Yeah. I was just going to make a joke about ways to reject people, but we can move on from that probably.
Oh dear.
But I think better than role playing with AI in person about how to reject or, role playing rejection is to talk to you about it.
I definitely don't do matchmaking anymore, but I have a lot of matchmaking friends and I'm happy to recommend you.
And that brings us to the call to action.
That's right. CTA.
Today's call to action is going to be pretty simple. Try not to flake on in-person experiences.
Please.
Don't ghost people.
Or your friends. Don't ghost friends.
Don't ghost friends. Get out there. Go to in-person events. Go to So Far sounds pretty cool to me. And if you are ghosted, don't take it personally. For all you know, that person got hit by a car or something. Do you know what I mean? Like just move on. And above all, be safe, have fun. Just be smart about the dating. Yeah, we're not saying go out on every single date with every single weirdo. But be safe, be smart, but have fun.
Yeah, if you're in the dating world, get out there and have fun for sure. And if your friends ask you if you want to hang out, say yes and go hang out, please. If you haven't seen your family in a while, see if they want to do a video call if they're far away, because seeing their face, hearing them laugh, I mean, those things are they really do affect your well-being in ways that we undervalue these days. We are undervaluing the in-person experience.
Indeed.
So with that, thank you so much for listening. Here's what we want you to do. subscribe to this show on YouTube. That is where we are trying to build the most hubbub about this show. That's where we're building the fuss.
Building the fuss.
Building the fuss. Subscribe on YouTube. Leave us a little comment if you have something to say about this episode. Definitely thumbs up anything. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, definitely listen all the way through and share it. Sharing, leaving reviews right now in these early days. This is really important for us to get people to interact with the show.
Yep.
And share it with someone, and maybe check us out on more than one platform. In the coming months, we're going to be sharing our Patreon. We're very excited about that.
Excellent.
Yep. This is a tight-knit production produced by yours truly, Carrie Prince.
Doug Daniels.
That's right. It's edited and mixed by
the wonderful, the incomparable
Mary Wen. Thank you, Mary. Our theme song is Human Colors by Delicate Beats. And
we got to go because both of our cats are meowing at the door, and you probably can't hear that, but they're going crazy right
meowing the whole time. All right. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.